Think about the biggest events in human history. Now, realize that almost none of them draw as many people as the World Cup final. 4 billion fans. Half the planet. All watching 22 people chase a single round object. If you ask the average fan who invented football, they will confidently point to England. But the truth is much stranger, much older, and significantly more violent. Before it was called the beautiful game, it involved ritual sacrifices, military training, and literal street riots. Today, we are uncovering the true, unfiltered history of soccer. We will see how a chaotic, brutal pastime evolved into the most universally understood language on Earth. To find the absolute earliest version of football, we have to travel back over 2,000 years to Han Dynasty China, roughly 200 BC. The game was called Cuju, which translates to kickball. This was not a casual backyard game, it was an intense military training manual. Soldiers used a leather ball stuffed with animal hair and feathers. Using your hands was strictly forbidden, and players had to kick the ball through a tiny opening in a silk net suspended high in the air. Emperors loved Cuju so much that it eventually spread to the royal courts and the upper classes. But China wasn't the only ancient culture obsessed with kicking a ball. Across the world, the Mayans and Aztecs played the Mesoamerican ballgame, known as Olamaliztli. They used a heavy, solid rubber ball that could weigh up to 9 pounds. This game was deeply religious, and the stakes were terrifyingly high. In some ritual matches, the losing team, or sometimes even the winning team, was actually sacrificed to the gods. Suddenly, a red card does not seem so bad, does it? Meanwhile, in ancient Greece, they played episkairos, a fiercely competitive game that allowed the use of hands and feet. The Romans took the Greek game, dialed up the violence, and called it harpastum. Roman legionnaires used harpastum to stay battle-ready. And when the Roman Empire invaded Britain, they brought their violent ball game with them. This is where the seed of English football was truly planted. Fast forward to medieval England. The Romans were gone, but the love for kicking things remained. The result was a phenomenon known as mob football. Imagine a game with almost no rules, no referee, and no pitch. The teams were entire neighboring villages, sometimes consisting of hundreds of men. The ball was usually an inflated pig's bladder. The goals could be 3 miles apart, often the town squares or local church doors of the rival villages. The only rule? Do not commit outright murder. Everything else, punching, kicking, tackling, and biting, was just part of the strategy. It was absolute, muddy chaos that destroyed crops, shattered windows, and caused severe injuries. The English monarchy hated it. In 1314, King Edward II officially banned the game, declaring that there was great noise in the city caused by hustling over large balls. Over the next 3 centuries, King Edward III, King Henry IV, and King Henry VIII all banned football. They were furious that young men were wasting their time playing in the mud instead of practicing their archery for war. But no matter how many times the kings banned it, the common people refused to stop playing. By the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution was changing the world. Cities were becoming crowded, and there was no longer space for massive, destructive games of mob football. The sport was dying. But it was saved by a very unlikely group, wealthy, aristocratic teenagers. English public boarding schools like Eton, Harrow, and Rugby had taken the chaotic game of the streets and brought it into their private schoolyards. To keep the students in line, the headmasters forced them to write down actual rules. But there was a massive problem: every single school had completely different rules. At Rugby school, they played on a massive grass field, and they allowed players to pick up the ball with their hands and brutally tackle opponents to the ground. But at schools like Eton, they played on hard stone courtyards, so tackling would be far too dangerous. Instead, they played the dribbling game, strictly banning the use of hands. When these students graduated and went to universities like Cambridge, they tried to play together. But chaos erupted because no one could agree on how to play. The Rugby boys were picking up the ball, while the Eton boys were screaming for a foul. It was a mess that desperately needed organizing. The defining moment of modern sports history happened on a cold evening, October 26, 1863. A solicitor named Ebenezer Cobb Morley gathered representatives from 12 different clubs at the Freemasons Tavern in central London. Morley's goal was simple: create one universal rulebook. Over the next 2 months, they held 6 incredibly heated meetings. The biggest argument was over 2 things: carrying the ball and hacking, which was the practice of legally kicking your opponent in the shins. The representative from the Blackheath Club, a man named Francis Campbell, argued that banning shin kicking would do away with all the courage and pluck of the game. When the final vote was cast, the shin kickers and ball carriers lost. Disgusted, the Blackheath Club walked out of the tavern. They went on to form the Rugby Football Union. The remaining clubs stayed, finalized the rules, and officially formed the Football Association, or the FA. They outlawed handling the ball, they banned hacking, and they created the framework for the modern game. Oh, and the word soccer? You can thank an English university student named Charles Rafford Brown. Back then, students loved adding ER to the end of words. They called rugby drugger. So, to shorten the name Association Football, they took the associates and turned it into soccer. Yes, the British invented the word, even though they heavily criticize Americans for using it today. The FA rules were perfect, but for the first decade, the game was still dominated by wealthy gentlemen. That changed in the late 1800s. Factory owners in northern England realized that playing football kept their workers healthy and away from the pubs on weekends. Railway companies, weapons factories, and cotton mills started forming their own teams. Manchester United was founded by railway workers. Arsenal was founded by workers at a munitions factory. These working-class teams were incredibly skilled, but their players couldn't afford to take time off work to play. So, the factories started secretly paying them. The wealthy London teams were outraged at the idea of professionalism, believing the game should be played purely for the love of it. But the working class prevailed. In 1885, professional football was legalized, completely transforming it from a posh hobby into a fierce, competitive industry. With the rules set and professional leagues booming, Britain exported the game to the rest of the world. British merchants, sailors, and engineers took football to South America, Europe, and Africa. They would step off their ships, set up a pitch at the docks, and challenge the locals to a match. The locals quickly caught on. It didn't require expensive equipment like cricket or tennis. All you needed was a ball and some open space. By 1904, the sport was so massively international that a global governing body was needed. And so, FIFA was founded in Paris. Decades later, in 1930, the first ever World Cup was held in Uruguay. The British inventors actually refused to participate, arrogantly believing their own tournament was superior. Uruguay ended up winning, proving that the game no longer belonged to the British. It belonged to the world. Football was not invented in a single day by a single genius. It is the result of thousands of years of human evolution. It began as a disciplined military drill in ancient China. It survived centuries as a brutal, blood-soaked riot in medieval English villages. It was refined by aristocratic schoolboys, perfected by working-class factory men, and eventually gifted to the entire globe. We didn't just invent a sport. We invented a universal language. One that transcends politics, religion, and borders. And all it took was a ball, a patch of grass, and the simplest rule in the history of sports. Don't use your hands.